entirety. I just know that there were certain portions of it, including the offer to help bury a body, that stand out in this.
So, all right, what's up, y'all? We got the Petito case back, man. Not much going on but the lawsuit stuff. Finally, we got Roberta speaking, saying something, big statement from her in court. Been following this. Last video on this was just the court stuff happening with the letter. Here is the meat and potatoes. I'll put the links of everything I'm about to show you in that beginning video in the description. The Bertolino said it's context. Okay, he says context, meaning it could mean anything. Okay, the FBI had the letter in evidence. Problem is, she never put a date on it. Come on, you hear the beginning clip here, right? However, here is her, obviously, this is my opinion, but obviously, they couldn't charge her for no date, and here's her excuse for what she's saying about with the shovel, getting out of prison, the cake, all that stuff. Here's her big statement that she said. It's actually verbatim in quotes, and it's signed at the bottom, legal document in court. Let's check it out. Kind of interesting to hear from Roberta. We never hear from her. I want to, before I read it, I do want to say this. In this amended lawsuit the Petitos have just did, Bertolini is trying to get out of the lawsuit. He's trying to get off from being a defendant on it. I mean, nobody wants to get sued, but you gotta, at some point, you gotta think like, come on, man, it's coming out. You know what I mean? I believe they barely, at least Roberta, barely got off charges on this one. But let's get into the actual statement of what she said, the total legal backtrack of what she didn't mean. Here it is right here. I, Roberta Laundrie, am a defendant in the above styled cause, and I do hereby swear affirm I fully understand the meaning of all terms of this affidavit. I wrote the letter requested by plaintiffs to my son, Brian Laundrie, on or about the end of May 2021. Although I do not know the exact date I wrote the letter, I do know what I wrote and gave it to Brian before Brian and Gabby left for Florida for New York, which was on June 2nd, 2021. The purpose of the letter was to reach out to Brian while he and I were experiencing a difficult period in our relationship. Brian and I always had a very open and communicative relationship. In the months prior to the trip, our relationship had become strained. Brian and I shared a love of stories, and some of the language in the letter was similar to the phrases to describe the death of a mother's love. The two books that come to mind are The Runaway Bunny and The Little Bear. In addition, Gabby had given Brian a book called Burn After Writing, which contained printed questions to which the reader responds by writing their answers on the page. The back of the book instructs the reader to create a secret book and then destroy by burn after writing. The bottom of the book cover says, write, burn, repeat. Brian, Gabby, and I often joked about this book and the importance of being able to express yourself. If you're embarrassed or simply didn't want anyone to know your thoughts or feelings, then the book offered perfect solution by telling you to burn it. This is where my message to Brian came from, and I wrote on the cover, burn after reading. In short, I was trying to connect with Brian and repair our relationship, and I had hoped this letter would remind him how much I loved him. There were some other phrases that I used in the letter which are not found in books I shared with Brian as a child. However, these phrases were often common enough in our circle of friends and family to describe who you could turn to in the most troubling times of your life. While I use words that seem to have connection with Brian's actions in taking the life of Gabby, I never would have fathomed the events that unfolded months later between Brian and Gabby. The words in the letter could never have been a comment on that tragic situation as they were written so many months before. My words to Brian were meant to convey my love and support for my son through a lighthearted and quirky reminder that my love for him was diminished and could not be shaken by miles of separation. Although a few words in the letter are being quoted by others having connection to this case, all of the words taken together and in the context of reason the letter was written show that there's no connection. In addition, there has been some speculation that this letter was in Brian's possession or in his backpack when he died, insinuating that I gave it to him as he left my home September 13, 2021. But that is not true because the FBI had the letter in their possession and questioned members of my family prior to October 20th, 2021, when my husband and I found Brian in the reserve. I repeat that the letter I wrote to Brian before he left with Gabby for their fateful trip was nothing more than a private communication between myself, my son, and I never expected anyone else would read it. In some way, I did not want anyone else to read it, as I know it's not the type of letter a mother writes to her adult son, and I did not want to embarrass Brian. That's why I wrote "burn after reading" on the envelope, and I knew that Brian would know what that meant. I am now appreciative that he actually kept it. Signed, Roberta.
I care less about that attorney and whatever he feels and thinks about. That family has ignored phone calls. That girl used to live there.